Welcome to A Home and Healing for Every Child. I'm your host, Melissa. This season, we're speaking with foster and kinship carers, guardians and adoptive parents, sharing honest conversations about what it really means to open your home and support children and young people in care. Caring for kids is meaningful and rewarding work, but it can also be complex and challenging. This podcast exists to bring carers together through real-life advice and lived experience. Whether you're just starting out or have been a carer for years, this space is for you. Let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maia. It's such a wonderful opportunity to talk to you and hear about your foster care journey. I'm really looking forward to getting to know your story more through our conversation this afternoon. And to kick us off, I'd really like to know about you as a foster carer and the journey that you've been on and what moments particularly stand out for you.
I think I had a quick think about this. I think a lot of people want you to talk about the huge, outstanding moments of, the children's journey, but I think it's also the tiny little pieces of personal breakthroughs that the children have. Like, for example, 15-year-old has just learnt to ride a bike. Now, that's something that a younger child would achieve early in life, but that tiny little achievement that he made, it was incredibly personal to him, and for us it was a huge milestone. It was widely celebrated, and the first time the child truly relaxes in your care just to be themselves, the first I love you, the first genuine laugh, the moment they begin to trust that the home that they're in is safe enough for them to be themselves. So having long-term children, I've witnessed incredible growth across that time, watching the children move from their survival mode into a place where they feel like they can be themselves and they build confidence. And, I think that their future is incredibly bright, and I found that particularly powerful, reinforcing that it's not just about the quick fixes, but about consistency and patience, and showing up every single day on their journey while they're with you. I think it's made me incredibly resilient. It's made me realise and understand child development. I'm already an early childhood teacher, so I have a background in child development, and I had a particularly deep understanding of children with additional needs from my career. But actually understanding trauma and the background behind that has opened up a lot of further education that I probably wouldn't have done if I didn't do fostering. Things like I have done half a psych degree. I've done tremendous amount of little tiny courses where I can, pick something that's happening at home and then, research that. And it's actually made me into an educator as well, as an educator or a student that I probably wouldn't have done if I'd continued on the journey without the children. I also understand a lot more about intergenerational trauma and how the body keeps the score, and, looking at my own family and the trauma that they had, and, I just a deeper understanding of things, as I got older, and it's made me more reflective of what I had done in bringing up my own child. It's made me more compassionate, more understanding that healing's not just linear, it's a circle, and sometimes there's ups and downs and backwards and 2 steps forwards, and sometimes the progress isn't exactly what you want over the time, and it's can happen quietly and without your knowledge that some breakthrough has happened, and your deeper understanding of that kind of changes along the way. But most importantly, I think it sealed my understanding of myself. About I've always been part of the community. I've always wanted to make the community a better place, and working in early childhood, I thought I had it then, but this has been incredibly I don't know, I suppose you could say self-serving journey, but it's about showing up and changing the trajectory of a child's life. I think that's my biggest impact.
So when you have a child enter your care, how do you build trust with that child, particularly when they're perhaps not used to adults being reliable, or, not a positive sort of experience?
I think it boils down to being consistent, and first connecting to them in some way, rather than what you're saying, but what you're doing. And they also have to marry up to each other. Your words and your actions must be the same. So if you're saying, I'm really happy today, and have a smile on your face, that tells them that's actually the truth, rather than, I'm really happy today, and having so your facial expressions and your mannerisms and that all have to be consistent across the board. Routine is really important, and predictability. They must know what's happening when, something that they can control or be in charge of. You have to be honest. What you say is going to happen needs to happen. You have to be the safe person and their security, and you have to advocate for them. But I also believe in listening. I think listening is a powerful tool. You have to be open to hearing what they want to say, their points, their journey, their ideas. For example, as my children got older, they used to be in charge of the menu. So they would, tell me what they wanted to eat, and we would cook it together. And, they had some sort of powerful connection that way. And that's when they would tell me things like, whilst we're cooking dinner, they would open up, and things would be, they'd tell me things that they probably wouldn't normally tell me if I just said, hey, tell me about so-and-so, or, things like that. But
yes,
a lot of connection needs to happen.
Definitely. And you touched on before about yourself as an educator and a learner. What types of supports and resources have made a particular difference, or the biggest difference, in your care for children? And where do you see gaps in terms of training that's available for foster carers?
I think the biggest supports is your own family network and your friends network. You have to have that trust base with them, because that's the people around you all the time. The other part of that is you've got the professionals. So you've got your therapists, you've got your caseworkers. School is particularly a very big part of the children's lives when they get to school, and they advocate and help, and they're tremendously brilliant at helping the children on their journey. Lots and lots of supports at school, which is fabulous. Trauma-informed therapy, I think, needs to have a bigger space with the children in out-of-home care. And I believe that working together amongst everybody needs to be probably a little bit better. I think carers and children need a bigger voice in their lives, because, let's face it is their lives, right? Not just a job. Whereas the schools and the therapists, it's a job for them. So for children and the carers and the family. I think that they need a bigger say. Where I feel there's more gaps, it's about consistency and communication, decision making, where, as I said, the children and the carers need more say. Delays and red tape is particularly hard for children. Children can't wait. They can't wait for a therapy to happen. They can't wait for, a service. They need it now. And they also need a clearer pathway to permanency if that's the wishes of the children and the carers. There needs to be a permanent home. The children feel more secure if they're included in that. I think that there's a huge gap there.
If you need support, training, resources, or one-to-one care coaching, all completely free, you can reach out to Carers for Kids New South Wales.
Visit our website at carersforkidsnewsouthwales.org.au or call us on 1300 782 975.
In terms of transitions, how do you handle transitions, especially when a child is leaving your care?
Transitions are incredibly difficult for children who are set in their ways and need predictability. So a lot of warning is necessary. They need to be warned. Look, this afternoon we're going to go to the shops, which is something completely different to what we normally need. I'm going to give you an hour's notice. We need to leave by 4:00. Still, sometimes that's difficult for children. So there's a lot of coaxing, a lot of, let's do something really fun while we're there, or let's do something fun while we're after. For children who are leaving care, that's particularly, it's a whole another kettle of fish. Children who come into care have grief. A lot of people understand grief and loss, so I talk kind of in those terms. So they're grieving their loss of their family, their biological family. Oftentimes children have an emergency carer, a short-term carer, and maybe another short-term carer, or they might have several carers before they even get to your place. They've had grief and loss every single time amongst all the things that have happened to them in their early childhood. So they've got trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, and when they get to you or when they leave you, that's another trauma. And to work through that is particularly hard work. It takes an incredible village to help that child through that trauma. And transitions are very difficult. We learnt the hard way by, let's go and take these wonderful kids we've just got to go and visit all our family. And, we learnt the hard way. These things take a lot of time and a lot of preparation, and you need to be on the ball. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes there's an emergency and you have to pack and go. But as the kids get older, it becomes increasingly easier when you've got that connection, and the children are connected to you, and it's kind of easier. But as they're a little, it's quite tricky, and particularly children who have had multiple placements when they come to you and then leave you. That's hard work, hard for everybody, but particularly hard for the child. And it has to be met with very therapeutic parenting.
And are there some particular tips from therapeutic parenting that you might put in place if you know that a transition's coming up?
I think the connection piece needs to happen. Like, for example, come up to a child and say, we have to travel to the shops this afternoon because of so-and-so. We need to actually go there. So what's going to make it easier for you to get in the car? Because particularly sometimes it's hard to get into the car and then get out of the car. So you've got those warning signs and tell them what you want, not what you don't want. Having that no, let's get in the car quick, let's go. You kind of can't do that. You have to really play it by ear, and sometimes things work the first time, but they don't work the second time or the third time. So you have to readjust, and lots of I messages. I need to go to the shops, and I need you to come with me, and I need this, and or so and so needs this, and it's the piece of discussion around telling them what needs to happen and why that needs to happen. And I think generally on the whole they will come. Sometimes they don't. But you need to have things in place where, what do I do if this child won't come with me, and what do I do if I'm met with some particularly bad behaviours, or or I shouldn't say bad behaviours, because no behaviour is bad. It's a communication, and then I need to look at what's that need that they've got, where they're making this behaviour. What is this? Did something happen at school today? Talk about why are you reacting like this? Or, I can see asking questions. I can see that you're struggling with this, and I'd like to talk about it with you. And, can you tell me what happened at school today? Because usually you find out there's something happened at school, or I just had a really bad day today, and then you talk about it. And once you've talked about it and they've let all the emotions through, then you go, okay, let's go to the car now. And there's usually all right. So there's something that's behind that behaviour, and you need to find out why. So yeah, I think a lot of talking. You're almost like a therapist yourself.
And definitely, I think you've hit the nail on the head in there. The thing I think we often learn first as foster carers is to be very malleable and adjust, and signpost a lot of things, and flag things, and yes, stop and talk through the emotions, and if you can name it, you can tame it, and connection over correction, and all of those sorts of things as well too.
Yeah,
there's some great examples. Thank you. And in thinking about, when we first become a foster carer or first start to think about it, what advice would you give to somebody who is feeling a bit unsure about whether foster care is right for them, whether they'd make a good carer or not?
I think what I would say to prospective carers is no one's perfect. So don't ask yourself whether you can be perfect to help a child, but ask whether you can show up consistently, and be open to learning, and to provide a safe and stable environment to help your child or your children, depending on how many you get. Sometimes there's more than what you think that might turn up, but can you be consistent for a child? It requires a lot of resilience. You need to have a village behind you. You need some supports, and be aware that some of those supports may not support you after the journey. And what would you do if those people leave? So children don't require perfection. They just require understanding safe, secure environments. If you're leaning towards it, do it. It's so rewarding. To see children thrive in your care is just amazing. It's an amazing journey for everybody in your family. I often get told that I'm an angel. I'm not, but I think that people put carers up on a pedestal sometimes, and you go, well, I'm just a normal person, so if I can do it, you can do it, type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I think that you touch on, I guess, the vulnerability that we all have about, can I do this? Can I manage this? And we all have that even when we've been caring for a long time. But yeah, perhaps when people are first thinking about whether they could be a foster carer or not, it's actually a lot simpler to a certain extent than what you might be throwing into the mix. And just being able to be there for children is the first and foremost part of it. If you look forward in terms of foster care as an entity, what sort of changes would you most like to see?
I think the journey of permanency needs to be a lot better than it is. I think that the voice of the carers and the children need to be better. Like, for example, children shouldn't spend years living with uncertainty. They need stability. They need belonging. That's essential for healthy development. The children just want to be normal, and I hear it quite a lot from my children. I just want to be normal, Mom. I just want to, I just want to go to school and not be pulled out of class or, pushed aside for a photo or something like that. Like, they just want to be normal kids. Not only do they need to be safe, but just generally given that opportunity to connect with people who love them, to be valued, and that sense of belonging is quite important for each and every child.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think, you touched on many times how important the voice of children are in this, and, looking to the future, making sure that's heard, and then that sense of permanency and it being, a smoother ride perhaps to permanency. There's many, many things like that we've touched on through these conversations and many other meetings, obviously, as well, too. It doesn't need to be any harder than it already is for these young people in our care. And I think that's a really, really important, message that you bring to us as we conclude today as well, too. Just, really putting the children at the centre of everything that we do, and then trying to make it as smooth for them as we possibly can. Well, thank you very, very much for all of your fabulous examples and your warmth and energy. And yes, I think there are definitely angelic qualities in there. I'm really pleased that you're looking after so many children. I'm sure they're having a wonderful time and feeling very loved and supported in your care as well, too. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. I often say that we need some more good stories out there for carers. We often hear some horrible ones in the news, but it's important to share, incredibly passionate people and,
Yes.
the things that the children achieve. Like, going to university is incredibly tough for these children, and, we should be applauding these children and these carers that are on these journeys.
Definitely. Many, many wins that we need to be hearing about.
Definitely.
There's more wins than losses, definitely.
And a final thing that I need to say is I spoke to my kids before I came on here, and they wanted to impart some wisdom, I suppose you could say.
Awesome.
So this is from my oldest. He said, "Don't give up on those children when they're behaving badly. That's a cry for help, and keep showing up for them because they need it. And, in the end, they will see that you're the one there for them, and, keep doing what you're doing."
Absolutely. No, showing up is such a powerful thing. And I think that's a lovely thing to echo back to your response about, if you're considering foster care, that's really what it's all about.
Mm.
Thank you. And thank you to your children for sharing their wisdom as well, too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of a Home and Healing for Every Child podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and look forward to having you join us for the next episode. Stay up to date with the latest news, stories, training and upcoming events by subscribing and following along on our socials at Adopt Change or Carers for Kids New South Wales.